Welcome to the latest episode of the Blazing Musket podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Penzone. I'm joined this week by the Secretary General of the Blazing Musket, Sam Lattof. Sam is here to talk about the MBTA joining in on the price gouging for the World Cup, FIFA inventing a new ticket level, the Revs playing a home game away in their opponent's stadium, and some updates on the Vermont Green and our planned coverage of the upcoming World Cup, if you can stomach paying attention to what is becoming the biggest cash grab in the history of sports until the 2028 LA Olympics. So, Sam, we are right in the thick of it here. Right, there's as much going on as there ever has been. You are the leader of this entity at this critical time in our history. So, how are you doing, and how are you handling the pressure? You know, heavy lies the crown, Sam.
Such heavy pressure, so much pressure. No, I'm doing good, Thomas. Very happy to be back on the show. Unfortunately was unable to make it down to Rhode Island. Wife is currently dealing with the flu, but doing great. I mean, so much soccer going on. The most soccer that New England has ever seen. So lots of coverage, lots of great stuff, all the way from the lovely Hartford, Connecticut, all the way up to Burlington, Vermont. There's a lot going on and a lot to talk about, especially, and I'll make sure to be very unbiased in my opinions on FIFA as I'm begging them to credential me for the World Cup.
I don't know if they're paying too much attention to this podcast, but if they are, I certainly won't be getting credentials for anything from anyone. But yeah, Sam, that Revs game last night, I'll be honest, I think if you asked my wife if she would rather get the flu or watch that game again, she'd probably just say, actually, I'll just go ahead and I'll just deal with the flu. Not the not the greatest display of soccer, particularly, look, I appreciate that there was, 6,000 people there Tuesday night, 7:00. Not an easy place to get to necessarily. Not an easy time of day to be on the roads. And yet 6,000 people turned up for, from as far as I can tell, one moment of quality in 2 hours. So what did you think about last night's game? And of course, the absurdity of the Revs being at home playing against Rhode Island in Rhode Island's own stadium.
Yeah, I mean, just the game in general. I'm just glad that like it actually looked like a soccer game. It's I've been hearing that it almost looked like a zombie affair of like just like no Rhode Island FC graphics, no graphics. But it looked good. It was great that I know the Revolution fans were happy they were actually able to use smoke. Um, but it was definitely very weird. I think even RIFC still use the home locker room, so it's like I don't feel like I feel like we could have just let Rhode Island FC be home. Now the Revs are still winless on the road, which is a funny stat. Andy Judd pointed that out, but overall, I mean, the match itself was, pretty lackluster. I think the first 45 minutes of soccer was played. And then moving forward into the second half, obviously the Fagundes goal was a moment of quality from him and, kind of more a moment of calmness and maturity from the Mario McIntosh. And then, going late into the game, Donovan Parisian makes those crucial errors. And, also Tanner Beeson gets dunked on by JJ Williams. But Rhode Island SC is able to claw back, end up in penalties. And the sight I will never forget is Donovan Parisian made some great saves and made up tenfold for his mistakes that got them penalties. But the moment that I will never forget is Tanner Beeson scoring the game winning goal and breaking out the sleep celly. I personally think Rhode Island FC should be relegated to USL League Two if that's what happens. Was a real memorable affair, and I think obviously there's a little bit of a budding rivalry. There was definitely some physical moments of tension. I mean, Amos Superior Thompson just obliterated Diego Fagundes' leg. Um,
Yeah,
and
that
Crete
was getting a little trippy there for a little bit. That was really a bit uncalled for. Is that type of play uh typical of RAFC, or am I just taking one game and projecting it out to the entirety of their season?
maybe that could happen in an El Clamico, and maybe I wasn't necessarily surprised to see it from Amos Shapiro Thompson. But you also have Peyton Miller like absolutely bulldozing Karifa Yao, which should not be happening. And Karifa Yao getting into it with Marcos Zambrano. So there definitely seemed to be you know a little bit of the embers starting to appear, and even the penalties, Koke Vegas and Donovan Parisian racing after getting the ball. But, it was nice to see, a little bit of intensity, especially because obviously the Revs played a second-rate lineup, and they didn't start Andrew Farrell, which I was quite upset about.
Yeah, I wasn't really thrilled to have to watch Tanner Beeson play soccer for 2 hours. I think the quality of the game was summed up pretty well. Someone in the group chat made the bold, audacious claim that Tanner Beeson was the best player on the field, which
No, put a name to it. Put a name to it.
was it Dolan?
It was Dolan.
Yeah. I I don't know where he was during this game that he arrived at that opinion. Um,
I believe he
it's
might have been shooting from behind Tanner Beeson, so you get to see him in all his glory.
Yeah, well, if such a thing is possible. Um, but yeah, I think any game in which Tanner Beeson is someone is laying claim to have been the best player on the field is an indication of the quality of that game. But you mentioned this though. It's funny. Talk about the game getting a little chippy while the actual play on the field wasn't really anything to get too excited about. We've also heard that claim about the 27 Clamico games every year. That actually most of what is going on has very little to do with soccer on the field. So is this something that you hope is going to get better as time goes on? That we don't just have these guys kicking out at each other and shoving and fans say, "Oh, my flare's bigger than yours," and that really seems to be the main attraction to these inner New England games.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect Donovan Parisian to go full Anthony Saha, but I think, being able to kind of see those tempers flare, and I mean, I'm not a fan of maybe kicking out, but if we can get some pushing and shoving, I mean, God forbid punches thrown, I soccer punches at that. Um, really would love to kind of see it continue to evolve, and I think it will just because if you look at the Open Cup, it's pretty likely that the Revs will face either Rhode Island or uh, pretty much all of the New England teams. Because I mean, Vermont or Portland can probably surprise a few folks and get into the later rounds. So this is something we're going to continue to see. And even though like not all these players are from Massachusetts and or from New England, for both sides, they're definitely just because there is that regional proximity, there is that kind of fight to want to get one over and get the win. So very much enjoyed that part of the game. Um, Probably wish there was a little bit of a better quality throughout 90 minutes, but I mean, definitely created some great moments. Fagundes, Parisian, JJ Williams. Those great moments. Those are the moments that can start to form some rivalries.
Yeah, there's a couple of moments here and there. I thought Parisian did well in the shootout. Obviously, just simply going the right way is often the best that goalkeepers can hope for. But he goes the right way 3 times in a row, makes all 3 saves. Look, I don't want to turn this into an episode of Revolution Recap, but what exactly did Parisian do wrong in the build up to that goal? Because from what I saw a foul on the goalkeeper that wasn't called, and a goal that was scored in the 11th minute of stoppage time, in which only 10 minutes were supposed to be put on the board. I
Oh,
don't. So unless Parisian is making these bad refereeing calls, I don't. What are people faulting him for?
well, I would say stoppage time thing. I mean, I get that it might have been extreme. It probably was
Extre-
extreme.
It was 11 minutes, Sam. Did
There
you
was
see
lots of
11
injuries.
minutes?
There's lots of injuries. It's injury time. But but I think so like both sides they were aware of it, and I think the Revolution they were just taking that sit back and we're gonna just try and grind it out approach, which it ended up biting them. And I think what stood out to me is that Parisian just kind of read this looping ball incorrectly, and that after this kind of chaotic moment, he literally fouls Hugo Baccarat. Hugo Baccarat should have had a three penalty kick. So I think it was more the lead up than the actual goal itself. I think on the goal itself, Tanner Beeson just gets dominated by JJ Williams. I think
That's man.
that's
That's
probably
man of the match. Tanner Beeson, who got dominated on
according to
the
John
game time.
Alexander Dolan. But I think it was more just that moment of chaos, and then that moment of chaos leads to kind of Rhode Island FC getting back into the game. And I mean, he did get a hand on him, and I think whenever a goalkeeper gets a hand on it, they probably wish they would have it back. But overall, I think it was the moment of chaos where you started to be like, I don't know if Donovan Parisian is ready for the bright lights, but then he more than made up for it with his penalty shootout performance. So overall, I would say good performance, especially even before that, he made a really great save that would have seen the game out. But I think it was more just kind of the lead up and kind of the confusion that came after that misread of the ball and essentially fouling Hugo Baccarat.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, he done well. There was, somebody played a ball that got past 2 defenders, and there was an overlapping run, on RIFC's left side, or their left whoever their left back was last night. I thought Parisian was, quick off his line and come out and smother that and get his hands on it. There wasn't a lot of shots in this game. There wasn't really, too much to do, but I think you're right, though. I thought for sure when Langoni and Feingold came on, it's like, okay, look, those 2 guys should be able to cook something up in like 10 minutes here, get a second goal and just kill this game off. Obviously that didn't come to pass. Jaden Daw, I don't really think covered himself in glory. You can see why they went out and got somebody like a Zambrano, who at least, Zambrano at least looked like it's the first time I've ever seen him play. Worked hard enough defensively. He was a bit of a battler. The ball was played to him or in his vicinity anyway. That's about the best you're going to get from a third choice striker. Is there anything from either team? Anything either team is going to be able to take from this game and build off of when they go back to league play?
I think the Revs got maybe a good look at some of the youngsters. I think of like Eric Klein, for instance, in the midfield.
Love Eric Klein.
Yes, this is the number one Eric Klein podcast. Malcolm Fry, had some moments, but also just wasn't able to really put it together. I'm really interested to see what Zambrano is able to do, if he just is more of a Reps 2 acquisition or if we start to see him more with the first team. I thought that Mario McIntosh had a good game with the Revolution's kind of outside back depth, especially at left back. Would love to see him maybe get some minutes off the bench or potentially, get a spot start here and there. But overall, I think it's really tough for the Revs to take anything away besides they were able to stay in the game. And I mean, RIFC was able to come back, and I think JJ Williams is really having a decent kind of start so far. Just kind of coming off a good performance against Lexington and now being able to get another goal. I think it's just your traditional number 9, and if he can start to find his form, Leo Alfonso is another attacker who could start to find his form. Maybe we start to see RIFC climb up the table, but definitely a little bit difficult to glean anything because again, they weren't going up against top tier talent from the Revolution. It was their B side. So, but hopefully for Rhode Island FC fans, JJ Williams can continue to string along some goals.
Yeah, he looked pretty good. Like I said, I don't watch RAFC play well all that much, but yeah, I thought he had a pretty good game. And yeah, look, I mean it wasn't the Revs' first team for sure, but they contained them pretty well, limited their chances, and maybe they can take a little bit from that. They're like, look, some of these guys are MLS level players, and they might not be regulars, but they're still, we see guys from time to time go from MLS, drop down in the championship, and and they're starters, and they're able to make a big impact that they weren't able to do in MLS. Oh, by the way, speaking of that, I almost had a heart attack. I was listening to a friend of the show, John Morrissey. He was talking about Mark Anthony Kaye.
Yeah.
He was in like Mark Anthony Kaye is like running the game and dominating in midfield, and he's smooth on the ball. And I was like, Mark Anthony Kaye is a key cog in a in a soccer team. I get it, like it's USL, right? But I was listening to it and it was like, if you take that out of context, right, and just played that for a Toronto FC fan, a Revs fan, or even a San Jose fan, I mean, their heads would explode. Like, wait, what? Who is doing what? It's crazy. Anyway, sorry, I had to get that out. I haven't told. It's just bottling that one up for like
I'm,
a
I'm
week
glad
and a
we could
half
be a
now.
safe place, Thomas. But
Well,
I mean,
so
hey, Sebastian Berhalter in Monterey Bay. You got Eloy Room playing for D Miami FC. Like, there's some crazy names. Matt Rayal in Hartford. Crazy name.
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, oh man, that was a funny moment. Unintentionally funny, obviously. If John Morrissey says Mark Anthony Kaye is doing well in USL, then that's as good as fact for me. All right, now speaking of the Revs and playing home away from home, their current home, of course, as we know, is going to be hosting the World Cup, 7 games, and we've gotten some information on how much it may cost you to get there if you don't want to drive a car for whatever reason, whether you don't have access to one, you're trying to be environmentally cautious, you don't want to sit in traffic, so on and so forth. But the MBTA is going to be charging $80 round trip from Boston to Foxborough. And that is 4 times. It's a little bit more than 4 times. The typical round trip, I believe, is $17.50. So they've jacked that up to $80. And they've said that, this is just what they have to do to pay for it. But this to me, Sam, this is nothing other than just another example of fans being just pillared for every single dollar that can be sucked out of their pocket.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely insane. Like you would think that, oh, maybe taking public transport, in terms of the train or in terms of, potentially the bus prices would be a lot cheaper, would be a cheaper option. That is not the case. And if you look at parking options, it's basically going to be the price of the ticket. So I'm very curious how people are going to get to these games. And I know FIFA did come back, and I'll say, give them, that they said that they have not banned tailgating, that it's, site specific, stadium specific. But it sounds like there's not going to be tailgating. And so
No,
how are people?
they did. They came out the other day. I saw it on the news. There's no tailgating. No tailgating in Foxborough.
Yes, yes, but FIFA wants you to no, that is not them. It is definitely not them.
No, of
But
course
yeah,
not.
I think it really is just price gouging to the max. I mean, I think in no particular terms, a bus ticket should cost more than like $20. And I think that might even be crazy. And
Well, we'll
train
get
ticket,
to the bus tickets in a minute. Yeah.
yeah, and train tickets costing this much is absolutely absurd. I mean, my wife has a commuter rail pass that she gets for work. Um, and basically it's like half off the normal price. And that's like 150, 140 bucks for a month of transportation. And you are now paying more than like 75%, 80% of that for a single day, maybe one way. I don't know how they're doing it. Um, it's just absolutely absurd. You look at the ticket conundrum, you look at this, and this whole World Cup was supposed to be a big moment for soccer in the United States, and I feel like it is going to be an absolute dud because of all the kind of corporate greed that went into it, driving away the actual soccer fan from being able to go to these events.
Yeah, I mean, it just never ends. It just they just keep coming up with new ways to, to fleece people for money, and and we talk about this as if like people are just going to pay cash, but that's often not the case. If you I don't know how much time any of you spend on FRED, the Federal Reserve Economic Database, but a quick trip over there will very quickly reveal that consumer credit card debt has essentially is well on its way back up from its low point in Q1 of 2021. Of course, a lot of people were able to pay down a lot of debt during COVID because of the money that came from the federal government at that time. But if you do look at that chart is well on its way to getting back up to people's expendable income just more and more slowly getting eaten away at by having to pay for debt because you want to do things, you want to enjoy life, you want to go to soccer games, you want to take vacation. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that's the only thing that they can really kind of turn to is I'll throw it on the card now, and then I'll find a way to pay for it later. And in line with that, what we also found out is that FIFA has invented a new level of ticketing. So they have taken the front row of what was the top tier of ticketing areas, right? So the primary, like closest to the field sections, the front row of those sections have now been put into a new tier, and those prices have been jacked up even further than they were already. So, Sam, what is there anything left for FIFA to find a way to make more money on?
I mean, at this point, I'm waiting for the oxygen charge to come into play. There's charge to breathe, but it's absolutely absurd. The whole ticketing process has been insane through, this is the window when you're going to be able to buy tickets to actually we somehow have more tickets. And now here's the final chance to buy tickets. So there's that, there's, the seat map changes, and there's, like you said, inventing of new zones. And it's just, again, another way to milk, soccer fans for as much money as possible. Like I know Zealand put out a great video, kind of like describing the whole process. So it's really just stunning the greed for this tournament. I mean, this is supposed to be the world's tournament. You're having people from across the country, across the world, come to usually one country, but in this case, three countries. So watch soccer games and come together, and it seems like that is the antithesis of what is going to be happening in this World Cup. It's like we were kind of joking. I mean, I'm probably if I'm ever going to go to a World Cup game, I'm going to be doing it outside the United States, because that will probably be a much more affordable experience, even if I have to fly somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, if they have another one in Europe, that would probably be that'd probably be the way to go. But of course, somebody has to actually want to host this tour. I think the appeal of hosting, much like we've seen with the Olympics, we know that at one point there was a group that was trying to bring the Olympics to Boston. It's like, look, no, nobody wants this. Nobody wants to deal with this. It's just a massive headache, and you don't come out ahead financially. Like the region, the towns, the state, they don't really come out ahead on any of this. You're just kind of saddled with, your reputation kind of gets sullied a little bit because you're associated with this thing that is just, is just ripping people off. But I just, to see the MBTA for whatever reason get to the point where, FIFA, obviously, we know FIFA doesn't pay for anything. They don't help out. They don't really, they don't really seem to care. But the fact that the MBTA has gotten to the point where they have to charge $80 round trip is really sad to see. It seems like the Foxborough Town Council, they seem like the only people that are capable of standing up to FIFA. No one else really seems to want to do it.
I mean, I'm excited to see these new super technological, super high tech MBTA cars that we're going to have now, because surely that budget deficit is going to evaporate, and there's going to be money to spend based on the level of ticket prices we're seeing. But no, there will probably just be orange line or red line cars just randomly catching on fire.
Yeah. Yeah, right, exactly. It would be nice if you're gonna pay $80, at least get some sort of guarantee, that this will not catch on fire. You will not have to exit the vehicle and jump off a bridge into a river down below. That will not be part of your trip down to Foxborough. But Sam, let me ask you this. $80 to get on a train that doesn't have to fight traffic to get where you're going. If that's not your jam, how about this is just recently announced, how about $95 to take a bus instead? Surely that must be better.
I would dare say it's worse, Thomas. That is absolutely it. I mean, to take a bus. This is I imagine is not going to be, a bus with layback seats or a ton of amenities. This is probably going to be your standard MBTA bus, and to pay $95 for a ticket is even insane. I would, and it's I just always reflect on, like, if I was not a media member, I would not be able to attend any of these games. Even if I was able to get tickets, I would have to, like, park all the way down and, like, rent them and walk all the way to the stadium. Like, the average fan, I just can't believe how much they're, getting exploited in this tournament. And, I think it's someone made a good point. I think it was Graham Ruff from Total Soccer Show. Like, all these soccer federations are just like sitting by and letting this happen. Now, obviously, it shouldn't be happening. Obviously, U.S. soccer should be better. Canada, Mexico, whatever. Um, but like you're you're watching, fans potentially not being able to go to games due to travel bans. You're seeing them get absolutely exploited in terms of money. New maps being drawn up. Like, where are the large soccer federations standing up for their fans? And they're just silent at the moment.
US soccer, if you're looking to US soccer to do right by anybody except for themselves,
At this point, I'm looking at the France, the Germanys,
oh, yeah,
the
yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, but look, it's the World Cup. Nobody wants to seem to mess with the World Cup. It's just, even if they gripe about it or whatever, it's like, well, we're still gonna go. There's never been a country that has stood up and said, you know what, this isn't for us anymore, and we're not going because they would, the fans in that country that I don't think they know that I don't think that they know how they would react. They probably would react very negatively just because of that. that pull the World Cup is what lets FIFA continue to get away with this stuff. Um, but yeah, so really, really, really disappointing. I was also reading something the other day that down in Mexico, they are, they've bought a lot of, the police force down there. I don't know how their police divisions work. But they've spent tons and tons of money on all this new equipment, specifically for the World Cup. But at the same time, they've obviously had some trouble with the cartels fighting amongst one another. There's a lot of people that are missing, that have disappeared. They have no idea where they are. Obviously, the police are supposed to be doing these investigations, trying to find these people. I saw a report the other day where essentially they're being told, "Hey, look, we're really focused on World Cup security right now. We can't look for your missing relative. We don't have time." Which is really, again, just talk about priorities getting just completely and totally out of whack, as if they weren't out of whack enough in this country. We see the same issues down in Mexico. So yeah, just really, really unfortunate stuff.
Yeah, and, like, you even look outside, the Massachusetts bubble, I think it's out in SoFi, they're having issues where with a labor dispute between the stadium workers and, one of their major fears is that, like, ICE is probably gonna be at this tournament, and, like,
Yep, yep.
it's going to be like, imagine just a stadium just having no stadium workers for a World Cup game. Probably would very be a massive effect, so, there's that, and, like,
Yeah.
with the no tailgating thing, like, I have a feeling that security at Gillette is going to be insane. Like, I think there's the potential that, like, you're going through security, like, on Route 1. That's how crazy security is going to be. So, I do not envy, those volunteers. I do not envy those, security and local law enforcement officials because they will probably, uh, be overworked to the max. And, I think after the France Brazil game, it seemed like things went smoothly, even though there was a lot of traffic. Um, there's the potential for these World Cup games to be like literal chaos.
Yeah, yeah, I think it could potentially be, a pretty rough situation, and like you said, we don't really know how involved ICE is or is not gonna be. I also saw something the other day from, Jules Boykoff. You can follow him on BlueSky. He's actually coming on the show, in a couple weeks' time. He has a book out, just kind of an in-depth look at all of the horrible things that have gone into this World Cup, with, of course, FIFA at the center of it. So he's gonna be on the show, I think in 3 weeks' time after the next roundtable. So really excited to have him on. But he was talking about how uh, ICE is essentially going to be like paying local law enforcement to do the ICE stuff for them, so they won't be there, but they're going to be like essentially kind of like making these guys like like deputy officers to carry out some of this stuff like on their behalf. So they've like found some sort of a workaround to the ICE isn't going to be present at the stadium itself, but we're gonna try and get our hands in there some other way anyway. So yeah,
Legalized bribery sounds cool.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just it's just one thing after another. It's really it's really unfortunate. And we'll have Valer Shabila, a good friend of the show from 615 Soccer. He is going to be on in a couple of weeks as well. Iraq has qualified for the World Cup, so I'll be very very interested to hear him talk about well, all of it. Iraq as a sporting nation qualifying for the World Cup for the first time in a long time. They're coming to the U.S., who obviously we largely destroyed their country for the better part of 2 decades. So it'll be interesting to see that dynamic. Are Iraqis going to come to the United States? Do they feel safe? Would he, if he was still in Iraq, still living in Iraq, would he himself be crazy enough to come over here? So really looking forward to kind of getting his thoughts on just, again, just it would be nice just to have him on, just to be like, hey, how great is it that, the country that you came from is qualified for the World Cup for the first time in a long time? That'd be a great story. But I'm sure we will have to segue into all the other not so great parts of this story that is, you pretty much tell the same story for every country that's coming.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm happy that Valeri's coming on. I know he had a cool moment with BJ Callahan, kind of congratulating him. So very happy that they were able to qualify for the tournament. Obviously, you know, with terrible circumstances regarding what's going on Courtesy of the United States in the country right now and for a long time, but very, very, excited, for all the Iraqis out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Um, all right, listen, this came out well, it came out sometime this afternoon anyway. Uh, this isn't directly related to soccer or sports, but it may have there may be some effect at some point. Anyway, a jury found today that Live Nation acted as a monopoly and overcharged ticket buyers. And they own Ticketmaster, and part of owning Ticketmaster, they essentially operated in a monopolistic way because they essentially control everything. They control the tickets, they control the artists, they control the venues. But it sounds like it's at least possible that Live Nation might have to break itself up a little bit. So we could see Ticketmaster, potentially be spun off. I'm sure just to some other, horrible company, but there is at least a possibility that maybe something might happen here with tickets and the way that we're all just kind of blindly ripped off if Live Nation has to break up and sell Ticketmaster off to somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, the whole ticket thing is absolutely insane when you look at how much control that Ticketmaster Live Nation has, when you look at just the absorbent, like, fees and all that stuff that people are able to charge. You also have, like, the whole bot system that's really driven up, pricing. Obviously it affects sports, but it affects concerts and a bunch of other stuff as well. So I guess a rare W in today's landscape that court decision was reached. I mean, we'll wonder, if something comes of it in terms of it being broken up, if there's any sort of kind of like lawsuit that comes from it from, like, consumers and in terms of class action and what have you. But hopefully it creates kind of more of an open market for tickets because, obviously you have kind of these secondary markets, whether it's StubHub, SeatGeek, Game Time, all the usual names.
Tons of them
Um,
now. Yeah, yeah.
but hopefully now there's more of a primary market that is not completely controlled by one entity and that we're seeing, more competition in the market and which will hopefully, not drive costs down completely, but be able to eliminate maybe some of these exorbitant fees that are out there, and what have you. So a rare piece of good news, in today's world.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we have to take what we can get. I know that United Airlines and American Airlines is apparently discussions that they might merge as if that wasn't if that wasn't a market that didn't have enough players in it already. But I mean, this is just really the inevitability of capitalism.
I believe it
Capitalism
is
is really
what Thomas and I've heard Oliver say the same thing and say it's capitalism.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's talking like, oh, it's free markets and competition, and it's well, no, not at its ultimate conclusion. What it really ends up being is heavily consolidated, markets where a small number of companies just dominate and are able to essentially just do whatever they want. They don't even have to collude or do corruption because there's so few of them that they can just mirror what the other one does, and they're the ones that get all the benefit, get all the profit. I saw something else today that corporations profit margins just continue to just go up and up and up and up. Even though we're told, well, gas prices are going up, it's inflation, it's tough times for us. But yet this gap between what we spend and what we make, it just continues to be a line that gets wider and wider and wider. So it's just it never ends, Sam.
You, you
But
you have to turn a profit every single quarter, every single year. If you don't, the business will die. Apparently, you can't have one bad year.
no, and if whatever your profit margin is, you have to make it bigger because if it starts to go the other way, then nobody wants to hold your stock anymore, and it gets sold off, and then you have to answer questions to your board because all of their value is tied up in the stock of that company, and yeah, it all just goes to shit. So good stuff. Uh, so Sam, it pretty much seems like Vermont Green is basically all we have left at this point. The only beacon of hope that we have left in this dark world of soccer and war and death and capitalism is the Vermont Green up in Burlington, Vermont. They for me oftentimes seem like the last and final point of resistance to all the complete and utter shit that we have to deal with every single day. So what do we have in store for Vermont Green this year? I know that you are a regular on the United Green podcast. So, what do we have to look forward to from the men's team, the women's team, and when does this all kick off?
Yeah, so obviously for the men's side of things, roster's still starting to fill out. It looks like it will largely be, the guys that were in the US Open Cup. Got the official news that Marcos Dos Santos will be back for the summer. Very excited to see him play for the Green. You also have the likes of David Ajagbe, Brandon Marshall. Brandon Marshall might be the new Musa Ndaye in terms of what he brings in terms of leadership and ability on the field. Nicholas Hertzeg will be back in goal. So a lot of familiar faces, and I think it's very easy to obviously build up expectations and see who's coming back and who's added, and think of what could be. But I mean, I do think this team could contend for another USL two championship. They're also competing in another tournament. I believe it's like the Steinbacher Cup. It's basically an amateur competition between some.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. So Vermont Green got announced to be participating. They're playing Hickory FC in the first match that will be down in believe one of the Carolinas. So yes, they will be in North Carolina, in May playing that tournament. So another chance at silverware. The tournament was recently up here in New Hampshire, when Seacoast participated in it, and it was hosted, I believe, at the Seacoast facilities. So really interesting for them to get another opportunity to win a trophy, and then obviously for the women's side very much continuing to build out that roster. They were able to get a lot of Boston College and Providence College players as well as UVM. There also is kind of some interesting talent, players with professional experience in Australia, in Italy. So a very interesting roster, as well as having some familiar faces. Neve Renwick will be returning. She's the player who scored the first goal for Vermont Green's women's side. So overall, lots of excitement. Again, this is a summer team, I believe. The first scheduled USL League Two game for the men's side is literally in about a month's time. On May 16th. We're recording on May 15th, so we're getting to the point of Vermont Green games happening. Some great league play, and then the same thing for the women's side starting up soon. So, going to be a lot to talk about, and hopefully, more trophies for the Green.
Yeah, 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 for sure. That's Steinbacher Cup. So that's a relatively short tournament. That's pretty much a semifinal and then a final, right? So that is that all kind of like played like in one weekend, or is you go down and you play both those games in a short space of time? I think El Farolito was they won it in 2025. Was that how it works? Is it just kind of a short format? You come in, you play your two games, and it's not like a too lengthy of a tournament.
Yeah, yeah, it shouldn't be too lengthy. I think they do it over a weekend, and I think, like you said, it's only 4 teams, so it should be not too quick, but also a great opportunity. And it's great to see kind of these amateur sides all come together. I mean, there's only so much you can do, and the country's so big, and
Yeah.
well, budgets are so tight. So it'll be great for the two sides to be able to for Vermont, to see kind of other levels of the amateur pyramid. So very hopeful that they're able to get another trophy, and considering the roster they have, I think it's quite possible.
Yeah, I mean, last season was incredible. I don't know that we can expect, that level of success every single year, but anything close to it, yeah, be another great summer up in the wonderful city of Burlington. Now the women's team is, you guys getting the sense that there's, the same level of hype and enthusiasm for the women's team. I mean, the men's team has obviously been just a out and out success right from the beginning. Are they anticipating similar number at the games and kind of a similar level of support now that they're trying to do this with two teams, right? So it's twice as many games. They're going to be they're going to be UVM quite a bit this summer.
Yeah, I believe, the overall ticket demand for season tickets was, I guess, not on par with maybe, the amount of ticket requests that we're seeing for Portland Hearts of Pine Open Cup game. You know, season tickets sold out, and, I think, the Green Mountain Boys will be there, and it'll be a great atmosphere. And I obviously people only have so much time, and there's obviously the potential for maybe a Vermont Green to be away, the men's side and the women's side to be at home, and how does that all work out? But I do expect there to be, maybe slightly smaller, but if not, probably the same level. We've really seen the soccer community grow in Vermont and Burlington specifically. Going to those women's games, I went to the first one where Sam Mewis coached, and the atmosphere is absolutely insane. I mean, Mewis was out there for like an hour or two post game signing autographs for literally anyone who would ask. So I really think there is a lot of support for a women's soccer team. You already have a large fan base, and obviously families, and people who have tickets are going to have maybe daughters, sisters, what have you. So being able to see some of them up and coming collegiate talent on the women's side is definitely you know, uh, even more of a draw. So I think there's going to be a quality level of support, even if it might look slightly less, but I imagine it'll be, if the same, same for the men's side as it is the women's side. So very excited for the season, for both the men and women. Hope to get up to Burlington a decent amount of times, or, as obviously when they come down closer to New Hampshire and Massachusetts, makes it a little bit easier, but very excited, for the Vermont Green season kickoff.
Yeah, and look, having 2 teams up there, it's not always easy to get a ticket, to a Vermont Green game, so by doubling the amount of home games, hopefully that does open up that opportunity, right? If you haven't had a chance to go, or if you're on vacation and you're going to be up that way, that just doubles the amount of days that there's been times when we've really wanted to get up there for a weekend, and we've gone and say, well, okay, the Green are away that weekend. We're still going to go, obviously, but anytime we do go up there, we do try and catch a Green game for sure. Uh, the women's team, who are they going to be playing against? If you're in Massachusetts, if you're in Eastern Massachusetts, like Southern New Hampshire, are there going to be any teams that they're playing against that are relatively close or close enough by that we might be able to make a drive out to?
Yeah, I would say probably the clo it is very tough, because obviously you do have the likes of the Mutiny, which are essentially, think of it like Western Mass Pioneers. They're playing out in Ludlow. You
Yeah,
do
yeah,
have Hartford Athletic. They are putting a women's side together. You also have AC Connecticut, but I would say it's probably going to be relegated to mostly, uh, Southern Connecticut, far Western Mass is going to be the closest games that you have. I know they are playing the Hudson Valley Crusaders, but I imagine that might be close for anyone who's maybe located in Massachusetts. But it's definitely probably going to be a hike, and maybe you go out to Ludlow. I did the drive once, and it wasn't too bad. And it is a great kind of atmosphere. Overall, I think it will be probably easier for fans on the men's side if you are located in Massachusetts or, Southern New Hampshire. Probably will be easier for you because you have the likes of NEFC, Boston Bolts. You have some of these Massachusetts sides as well as obviously Seacoast United. Probably be a little bit more difficult for the fans of the women's game. I know the lovely Oliver Scholes. He's going to try and head out to a few of those Hartford Athletic USLW games, so he'll be there for us because I don't know if I'll be able to make the trek to Connecticut, but really excited to be able to go up to Vermont for a few of these women's games.
yeah. And Hartford, I mean, Hartford's actually it's a pretty easy drive. We were there 2 weeks the weekend that the weekend that the Revs were off. We very, very unwisely bought tickets without checking the weather first. We bought tickets and checked the weather second. I think the high temperature was like 38 degrees. But we had a good time. It was a little cold, but that's a pretty easy drive even from Eastern Massachusetts on the weekend. Not too hard to get there. The Hartford game, I don't know if you know off the top of your head. Are the Hartford games, are they going to play same place that the Athletic play?
I don't know for sure. I would imagine they will. I believe, like their academy system, like Hartford's academy, does play games there too as well. So I mean, it would make sense, for the women's games to be there, but I do not know exactly for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it makes sense. It seems like they're mostly the only tenants there. It does a pretty good impersonation of a soccer specific stadium at this point. So yeah, yeah. So
If
if you're
only
in,
they didn't have beers for ants, Thomas. If only the beers were not sized for ants.
that's the $2 beer.
The
That's only if you
$2
get.
beer.
That's only if you get the $2 beer, which I don't know. If you do the
You
math,
rather
you
a two
might.
dollars would you rather a $2 beer or a $15 Modelo? I only am telling this because I literally just talked with Oliver about this last night.
$15 for a Modelo. Yeah, that's pushing it a little bit. Yeah, yeah, $15 for a zero gravity. Now I mean, that's a bargain at any
I'd pay
place.
$20 for zero gravities.
Oh yeah, sure, absolutely. I pull
Also
that.
tickets. I don't wanna plug too much here. Oliver Scholes is potentially working on an article about the beer.
About the beer. What the beer? Where?
The Hartford beer situation.
Really?
Yes, and it's gonna win all the journalism prizes.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they don't pull his credentials. So it's gotta tell both sides. You gotta get down to the
He's gonna ask them for comment, of course.
brewery. Get down. Get the details on why Modelo costs $15. But yeah, no, that's good. It's good that Oliver's going to try and cover, some of the women's games as well. I know for sure that we do our best to cover as many teams as we can, particularly the ones that helpful and make it easy for us. That's kind of a part of the game as well. Uh, one thing do I ask you? I've been thinking about this a lot lately because this does exist in other countries, but it definitely does not exist in this one that I'm aware of. So a team like Vermont Green, right? Like, they, I am not aware of any team in this country that has any element of fan ownership at all whatsoever. To the point that there is a group that is, as far as I can tell, it's mostly Americans. It's started by Americans. That it's a fan owned team, but they went and acquired an eighth division team in Italy, which I of course have no problem with. But again, I think it kind of speaks to the fact that if you're an American soccer fan that wants to participate in the ownership of a team, apparently one of the best avenues to do so is to plop down $100 a year to be an owner of a team in the Italian eighth division, which I can tell you from what I've watched, it looks like eighth division soccer from what I've been able to see. So, is there any particular reason why this type of thing hasn't really happened? Like, I've heard Jason Davis talk about this before, where essentially U.S. Soccer just has all their guidelines set up so that it's nearly impossible for anyone to do this.
I think maybe for full fan ownership, like you said, we haven't seen it, but we have seen clubs kind of do the sort of like crowdfunding approach, and kind of, seeking kind of investment, if you will. I know, Orange County did this, there's various kind of like platforms you can use online, to become uh, an owner. So sort of like the Green Bay Packers, I would assume, kind of way. Um, so and kind of like what we saw with Wrexham too as well. So Orange County, I believe the Greenville Triumph is actually currently, taking kind of, funding. I don't know if request is the right words, but basically, if you want to own a very small piece of a Greenville Triumph, you can go and do that. And I mean, I would love for Vermont Green to like take a similar approach. I mean, I would throw in a few dollars, to just be able to say I was an owner of Vermont Green. But it would be interesting because obviously when you think about Vermont Green's goals, in terms of maybe potentially moving upwards, that would take an increased level of investment. It would also take some increased level of managing environmental risk in terms of the amount of travel, and what have you. But I do appreciate the kind of fan ownership that we do see, obviously primarily in Europe, but imagining, technically being able to call yourself an owner of a club, being able to potentially make kind of like some sort of decisions. Like, I always remember in Wrexham when they had like that big fan meeting to like approve Ryan Reynolds and, Rob McElhenney coming in. So, even if it might be a little bit, of a show that you have this control, but, you are, being able to participate in some way. I'd love to see it taken more often. And I think, maybe for these smaller clubs, these clubs who are able to cultivate kind of a community and a fan base, whether it's Vermont Green. I think of the club in Annapolis. I think of, maybe some of these USL League One clubs, basically not your Portland Hearts of Pine because they have enough money, that they're doing just fine. But overall, I think, fan ownership is very intriguing, an intriguing proposition that maybe you'll start to see more of. Like I said, I think also too, Orange County and maybe Oakland Roots, I think, did it as well. So, we are seeing some soccer teams look towards it.
Yeah, I definitely have to look into that a little bit more because I do as things just continue to go the way they're going. I just increasingly just feel more and more compelled to not not pay attention to certain levels of the game. I don't really watch the Premier League anymore, or the Champions League. Like I just it doesn't really fit into the that I time of the day that I want to watch soccer. But again, it's just everything is just so overdone, so over the top. Even MLS, they have Polymarket as a sponsor. They seem to really make decisions that basically are just centered around making more money for the owners. The switch to the false ring schedule. The best justification I've heard of that is essentially, well, we'll be able to sell players for more money. The rest of you are just gonna have to you're just gonna have to put up with it so that the owners can put more money in their pockets. So yeah, I don't know. It's just something I've been thinking about a lot lately because it does become harder and harder as time goes on to continue to care and follow on, along with all this stuff. And it just always makes me think of if somebody was going to try to do this, like the Vermont Greens sounds like the type of club that if there was an avenue to do it, they might be, in New England anyway, they might be the ones to explore. I know Detroit City FC at one point had tried to do this with like a bunch of small owners. But when they wanted to move up to the USL Championship, it just became, look, we have to have some sole person with X number of wealth in order for us to play, at this level, and and what can you do if you have that ambition? But yeah, for sure, I just would like to see that develop a little bit more, so people that really feel like they're just totally closed off from all this stuff, there's some other avenue. But if people, Sam, are going to continue to follow particularly the World Cup and all the ridiculous things that have kind of gone around it, the games will inevitably be played. If you can get enough tunnel vision, you might be able to just block out all these other things going on around it and just tune in for the game. I personally, at this point, Italy didn't qualify, so I don't really care anymore. You know, what are our plans at the moment for Blazing Musket coverage of the World Cup?
Yeah, so after all those glowing things I said about FIFA, I am waiting to hear back on my media credentials in terms of covering the Boston games. You know, I've essentially applied for every single game. So as long as I am able to be there, plan on having coverage of those games. I mean, probably will also have coverage of those games, even if I'm not there. But FIFA didn't hear that, so if you want these games covered on our lovely site, you should credential me. But yeah, so still waiting to hear back on that. Hopefully, God willing, I am able to go to some of these games. Hopefully as well as Dolan too, or else I will just have a big black screen as the photo. But besides that, we're also looking, obviously, to cover the U.S. men's national team. If there are some teams that stand out in terms of former Revs, we might do a little bit more coverage there. I just love Brazil, so I probably, read some words on Brazil. I was looking forward to Thomas writing about Italy, but Esmir
Yeah, well,
Barnkarvitz
I got to.
said that won't happen. But yeah, so we're definitely will have coverage of the Boston games, Boston. And we'll also have coverage of the U.S. men's national team games and might have a few others to sprinkle in there as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try and find some team for some contrived reason to latch on to for the
Brazil or South
tournament.
Korea, Tom. That's what I tell you.
Brazil, not for me. No.
South Korea, Tom. Go to South Korea.
Yeah, so I maybe because it's Son. Yeah, that might work. That might work. I'll probably just follow. Bielsa's coaching Uruguay, so I think I'll just try and latch on to Uruguay for however they hang around. Forever how long they hang around. Yeah, so maybe Uruguay, maybe South Korea. Uh, That's and then otherwise I think it's just same thing when I watch the NCAA basketball tournament. I basically just turn the game on and whichever team is supposed to lose, I just root for that team. That makes it a little bit more enjoyable. Yeah. All right. Look, Sam, appreciate having you on the show. as always, and of course, all of the all the great stuff that you do, leading the Blazing Musket, and of course, everything is in full swing. But can you just real quick, just give us a very quick rundown of what a typical weekend might look like in terms of Blazing Musket coverage of everything that's going on?
Yeah, so obviously typical weekend kind of we'll start on Friday with injury reports coming out for the Revs. We'll kind of, get those out to people so that people know what's going on in terms of who's healthy, who's not, for opponents and, the players that the Revolution are playing, USL teams that usually put out these reports. I think Oliver said that he saw his first player availability, like injury report from Hartford in like multiple years. So, starts on Friday. On Saturday, we continue to kind of preview the match. Jake Hatnese has his Know Thy Enemy columns. Um, where he speaks to someone, who covers the opposing team. He does a great job with those and also, does his own kind of analysis of the opponents. And then, on game days, we have coverage of every single team that's playing, whether it's me covering the Rebs, usually having three thoughts at the final whistle. We also have Oliver covering Hartford Athletic. We have Liz McGowan, who covers RIFC. We're also adding someone who recently had to deal with a terrible situation out in New York, but he's going to be able to help us out with some coverage of RAFC. And then obviously Jackie Contreras is killing it with Boston Legacy because even when players are just allowed to walk on the field, even though they haven't signed, Jackie is there to snap a photo and make sure that it is caught in 4K, as the kids say. So she's doing a great job. But basically, we'll have all coverage of those games whenever they happen, Saturday or Sunday. And we'll also follow it up with stuff from, whether it's the locker room through me and Seth. Seth was also recently up in Portland. So, if Portland's playing, we'll have either Seth or, people from afar covering the team. But we'll have, quotes, locker room reactions and what have you, from all the teams that we were able to. But basically, on weekends, it's a ton of editing game recaps, editing game previews, and writing about what we see in the matches. So, your email inboxes might be a little bit full, but it's because you're pretty much getting all the soccer news that you need.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So look, Sam, appreciate you coming on the show as always. If you're not already a frequent visitor to theblazingmusket.com, please do check us out. Please do consider subscribing to the website to allow all these guys to continue to put in all the miles and do all the coverage, ask all the questions, take all the photos that they take for all the soccer in New England. And of course, if you are continuing to enjoy and like this show each week, please be sure to subscribe to the downloads, leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts from, and again, always feel free to drop us an email, let us know what you think about the shows, anything we could do better, any type of guests, any areas of focus you might think that we should focus in on. We'll be back. The round table is coming up again. Like I mentioned earlier, we have Valer Shabila from 615 Soccer coming on to talk about Iraq qualifying for the World Cup. And we have Jules Boykoff joining us as well in a couple weeks' time to talk about his new book, Red Card, which is the second book about name Red Card that I'm aware of. This one is covering the latest round of FIFA and all of the corruption and wonderful things that they do to try and destroy the world's game. So we'll have him on in a few weeks' time as well. So again, we do appreciate all of you that tune in and listen every single week. Hope you enjoyed this show. Hope to see you back again here next week.